My name is Tyler. I'm an investigative journalist who specializes in tracking down ghost towns, places that were wiped off the map by economic collapse, fires, or natural disasters. Last month, I found an old, faded government survey map from 1954. Deep in the uncharted wilderness of the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia, there was a small town marked simply as Oakhaven. Curiously, there were no records of this town anywhere online. No census data, no historical societies, nothing. It was as if someone had intentionally scrubbed it from human history. Driven by curiosity, I packed my gear, grabbed my camera, and drove out to find the lost town of Oakhaven. It was exactly 4 p.m. when I finally found the overgrown, unpaved logging road that led into the valley. The deeper I drove, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The towering oak trees were dying, their black, twisted branches weaving together like a roof, blocking out the daylight. By the time I reached the town borders, the sun had dropped below the mountains, and a heavy, unnatural gray fog had swallowed the valley. Oakhaven was a frozen nightmare. Dozens of old wooden houses stood rotting in the mist. The strange part was that the town didn't look abandoned due to an economic crash. It looked like everyone had vanished in a single second. In one house, through the cracked window, I could see a dinner table set with rusted plates. In another, a child's bicycle lay rusted in the middle of the driveway. But the most disturbing thing was the silence. No birds, no wind, no insects. Just a suffocating, heavy quiet that made my ears ring. I pulled out my digital audio recorder to capture the ambient silence. As I pressed record, the screen began to glitch violently. The digital timer started spinning uncontrollably before freezing completely at **0000. Suddenly, a deafening burst of static roared through my headphones, followed by a voice. It was a recorded emergency broadcast from decades ago, but the frequency was distorted and unnervingly flat. Attention all citizens of Oakhaven. Quarantine protocols are now absolute. Do not look at the fog. Do not answer if you hear a family member calling from the tree line. It is not them. It has learned our names. The audio cut out, replaced by a low rhythmic scratching sound. Scritch, scratch, scritch. A cold shiver rippled down my spine. I took off my headphones, telling myself it was just an old radio interference. But as I looked up, the gray fog outside began to swirl violently. The temperature plummeted, and my breath turned into white mist. Then, the whispers began. From the dark windows of the abandoned houses all around me, voices started calling out. They were soft, desperate whispers, overlapping each other. Tyler, help me. Tyler, we're so cold out here. Tyler, open your eyes. My blood turned to pure ice. Those voices didn't belong to strangers. I recognized them. One was my mother. One was my childhood best friend. One was my late grandfather. There was absolutely no logical reason for their voices to be echoing inside an abandoned, cursed town in the middle of the mountains. Primal panic took over. I turned around and sprinted back toward my SUV. I jumped into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and jammed the key into the ignition. Click, click, click. The battery was completely dead. The dashboard lights flickered and died, leaving me in the dim gray twilight. I looked out the windshield. Emerging from the thick fog in the middle of the road were 3 figures. They were walking toward my car with a strange, unnatural, jerky movement, like puppets being pulled by invisible strings. As they stepped into the dim light, my heart violently hammered against my ribs. They looked human from a distance, wearing faded 1950s clothing. But as they drew closer, the illusion shattered. Their limbs were unnaturally long and skeletal, bending at impossible angles with a sickening crack sound of breaking bones. And they had no faces. Where their eyes, noses, and mouths should have been, there was nothing but a smooth, featureless mask of pale gray skin. But as they surrounded my SUV, a jagged black tear ripped open across the bottom of each faceless head. It stretched from ear to ear, widening into massive hollow grins filled with rows of needle-like teeth.
Suddenly, they dropped flat onto the ground, crouching on all fours like massive, distorted spiders. They launched themselves at my car. Bang, bang, bang! Their skeletal hands slammed against the glass windows, spiderwebbing the frames. Their faceless, grinning heads pressed directly against the glass, just inches away from me. My car's radio violently roared to life, blasting full-volume static. Through the static, my own voice began to scream back at me from the speakers. "Tyler, let us in! We just want to borrow your face! It fits so well!" It was a glitched, skipping loop of my own voice. Driven by pure terror, I grabbed my heavy iron flashlight, kicked the passenger door open, and scrambled out into the dirt. I ran blindly into the fog, tearing through the abandoned streets of Oakhaven. I could hear them right behind me. Thump, thump, thump. The wet, heavy sound of multiple faceless entities sprinting on all fours, chasing me through the dark. I ran until my lungs burned and my vision blurred. Ahead of me, I saw the old wooden church of the town. I burst through the double doors, slammed them shut, and slid a heavy wooden beam across the lock. Inside, the church was pitch black and freezing. I collapsed against the altar, panting violently, holding my hands over my ears to drown out the scratching noises outside. The entities began to scrape their long fingernails against the wooden walls of the church. Screech, screech. I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed for the morning. Hours passed. Time lost all meaning. Eventually, the scratching stopped. The suffocating pressure lifted, and a pale, warm morning light began to bleed through the stained glass windows. The forest outside came alive with the sound of wind and birds. I let out a massive, shuddering sob of relief. I had survived the night in Oakhaven. Trembling and covered in cold sweat, I walked up to the small restroom at the back of the church altar to clean myself up. I turned on the rusted faucet, splashed the freezing water over my eyes, and grabbed a paper towel to dry my face. As I wiped my eyes and looked up into the old, dust-covered mirror, my body went entirely numb. The breath left my lungs, and my heart completely stopped. The reflection looking back at me had my jacket, my hair, and my camera strap around its neck, but my face was gone. In its place was a smooth, featureless mass of pale gray skin. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a blank canvas. I tried to scream, but I had no mouth to form the sound. Only a pathetic, suffocating wheeze left my throat. Suddenly, from the other side of the glass, the reflection raised its hand and pressed its palm against the mirror. A terrifying, wide mouth, filled with needle-like teeth, ripped open across the smooth flesh. It smiled a sinister, mocking smile, and spoke in my perfect original voice. "Thanks for bringing a new face to Oakhaven, Tyler. We've been waiting for a fresh identity." I realized the horrifying truth too late. The morning had never come. The entity had glitched my mind to make me think I was safe, forcing me to let my guard down inside the dark church. And now, I am the one trapped on the other side of the glass, looking out into a cursed town that no longer belongs to me, while a faceless monster walks out of the valley, wearing my skin.